Archaic Records.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Archaic Records here with you again. My name is Jamie, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Here to wish you a very happy Morrissey Monday, my weekly celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths. And for this week's episode, we're going to go back to 2006, take a look at Morrissey's 8th studio album, the Jan Brady of his catalog, Ringleader of The Tormentors. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the most interesting records in Morrissey's catalog. I think primarily because I have had such a strange relationship with this record over the years. To me, this record has sort of been victimized by its own place in the birthing order of the Morrissey record catalog. To me, this record kind of suffers from middle child syndrome a little bit, being sandwiched in between You Were the Quarry from 2004 and Years of Refusal from 2009, both of which are records that I like much better than Ringleader of the Tormentors. But really, it is its proximity to Morrissey's 2004 record, You Were the Quarry, which to me has kind of given the record its identity for most of its life. You Were the Quarry is that kind of, rare accomplishment in music. To me, this is one of the greatest records ever made. And, despite all of the bickering and debate and infighting that sometimes occurs, among the Morrissey fan community, I think that this is a record that, generally speaking, we all sort of celebrate. Having said that, of course, there's going to be somebody that says, actually, because, there always has to be, that one guy. But I think generally speaking, You Were the Quarry is a record that most of us celebrate. I think it's one of Morrissey's, best records in his entire catalog. At the time when You Were the Quarry came out, also, my expectations for it were sort of low key. It had been 7 years since Morrissey released his record prior to that one, which was Maladjusted, which is a record that I really liked, but I know that a lot of people didn't. But when You Were the Quarry came out, I had no idea what to expect. It had been 7 years. There was a lot of rumor and a lot of debate as to what Morrissey had been doing with his time off, or at least his time away from releasing new music. And when You Were the Quarry came out, it was so good, it was so amazing, that it completely, ripped my head off. And this is still one of Morrissey's crowning achievements, as far as I'm concerned. It's still a record that I listen to, probably in its entirety multiple times a month still, 20 years into its life. Because of the greatness of You Were the Quarry, though, it kind of had the opposite effect when it was announced that in 2006 Morrissey would be releasing his follow-up record, Ringleader of the Tormentors. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when this record came out, this record probably had the highest expectations I've ever had when it came to a new Morrissey record, even still to this day, as far as my fandom is concerned. When this record was announced, my expectations were through the roof, probably unrealistically, probably unfairly high for this record to come out. I don't think I had ever been more excited for a new Morrissey record. I remember I went out and I bought it. Of course, the day it came out, I would have regardless, but I bought it the day it came out. And I remember as I was taking this record home, I was so happy to have it. I feel like I was literally floating home from the record store. I took this thing home. I tore into it like a fat girl into a box of Krispy Kremes. I immediately put it on. And as I began listening to it, I remember I was sitting there, and as it began playing, I was like, okay. And then I remember as it ended the first time, looking around like, is that it? Did I miss something? I remember my first impression of this record was that it was just hugely disappointing when it first came out. It was a record that I remember at the time people would be like, "Oh, how's the new Morrissey record?" And I'd be like, "Well, wasn't as good as You Were the Quarry." For years after that too, people would ask me like, "Oh, what do you think of Ringleader of the Tormentors?" And I'd always say, "Yeah, it sucks compared to You Were the Quarry." And it got to the point where I started to feel like, one of those like bad suburban dads. I came to You Were the Quarry. I'd be like, "Yeah, that's my boy. He's captain of the football team. He's dating the prom queen. Bought him a new car for his 16th birthday. Coach thinks he might have what it takes to go pro one day." It's my other son. He's usually in the basement with his weirdo friends, playing Dungeons and Dragons and listening to black metal. "Hey, what the hell's going on down there?" "Duncan just made 13th level sorcerer, Dad." "Damn kid. Why can't you be more like your brother?" "I don't really like football, Dad." "You haven't even tried." "Why can't you just accept me for who I am?" "I don't know. I guess I was never a nerd." Of course, the joke's on me now. He blew his knee out, knocked up his girlfriend at 17. He's a night manager at the Waffle House. He's in his 40s, still wears his Letterman sweater. He was able to harness his creativity into an invention that forever changed the world. He's a billionaire, banging out supermodels on Zuckerberg's private yacht. Of course, he hasn't talked to me in like 10 years. It's my boy. Chip off the old block, that one is. But that was the kind of relationship I had with this record. I was always comparing it to You Were the Quarry. It was half of its identity was the fact that it was the record that followed up You Were the Quarry. And it wasn't really until I took a step back and I sort of reapproached the way I looked at the record. I kind of let it have its own identity. I sort of let it stand on its own 2 feet. I sort of, surgically removed it from its predecessor. And it was like kind of through that process that I sort of, began to appreciate the record more for what it is, rather than what it isn't now. Is it my favorite record of all time? Of course not. But I do think it has a lot of good songs. I think it has some songs that are, sort of over-celebrated. And I do genuinely think it does have, a couple of Morrissey's lesser songs on the record. Anyway, let's get into the record just a little bit. This record was released on April 3rd, 2006, as I mentioned before. This was probably the most excited I had ever been for a Morrissey album before or since. This record was was produced by Tony Visconti. And, the first thing of course, you notice with the album is the cover. This is also something about the record I've never really quite understood. To me, this was like another way it was sort of linked to You Were the Quarry. Of course, on the cover of You Were the Quarry, you have the retina burning hot pink for one thing, but of course Morrissey is sort of dressed up as the 20s gangster. He's got the pinstripe suit. He's got the Tommy gun. He's looking pretty snug. And in 2006, I should say, for some reason, Morrissey is dressed up as a concert violinist. I remember thinking, is this like a theme? Is this another way that these two records are connected? I mean, I sort of get the gangster Tommy gun look. It's very sort of Joe Strummer. It's sort of Clash. I mean, it's cool. I never quite understood this. To me, it kind of looks awkward. Why is he a concert violinist? I don't really understand that. Of course, down here in Tennessee, people say he's a fiddler. He can really saw that fiddle, boy. I do really love, though. I do love the font, and I love this sort of graphic up here. I don't really love the picture. I don't understand it, I guess. More than anything, I do love the picture on the inside with the Vespa and the sort of antique camera. I think this would be a much better sleeve than the concert violin theme. One thing about this record also which makes it stand out is this was the first record which featured guitarist Jesse Tobias. I think he really created a different sound. I think he made a tangible difference in the sound of the band. I think this record is a lot rockier than You Are the Quarry. I think it's a lot less poppy. I think, generally speaking, I think it's a little bit less, user-friendly. I do like the sound on this record. I love the production on this record. I mentioned it was produced by Tony Visconti. Anyway, the first song on this record is a song called I Will See You in Far Off Places. I have read that this song is about Osama bin Laden, if not Osama bin Laden specifically, then sort of terrorism in general and the absurdity, the ridiculousness of dying as a martyr for that sort of belief system. I really like the song. I think it's a good start to the record. It definitely kind of has like sort of a Middle Eastern sort of vibe. The second song on this record, I hate to say this about anything, about Morrissey, but this is probably my least favorite Morrissey song of all time. The song is called Dear God, Please Help Me. I've heard it bantied about that this song is a love letter to Rome. I've also heard people declare that this is a tune about a man desperately trying to control his wildest urges. I've heard other people say that this is Morrissey sort of proclaiming his sexuality from the top of the mountain. All of that sort of makes sense. I just don't really like this song. I've never liked this song. From the time I heard it, the first time to the last time, it's probably my least favorite Morrissey song in the entire catalog. To me, it's pretty much skippage every time. Of course, it has the lyric, there are explosive kegs between my legs. Thank you, Steve. Nothing against you, personally. I love you. I just prefer not to spend much of my free time thinking about other men's almonds, if it's all the same to you. The next song after that is a song called You Have Killed Me. I really like this song. I think that this is one of the better songs on the record. I think the song is sort of about a sexual encounter, perhaps somebody's first sexual encounter, and the feelings that opens up. Maybe becoming or feeling uncomfortable about your own vulnerability, maybe becoming aware of your own vulnerability. I think it's one of the best songs on the record. It is certainly much better than Dear God, Please Help Me, and Morrissey does not mention his seeds in this one, which I appreciate. The next song after that is a song called The Youngest is the Most Loved. Somebody one time told me they thought this song was sort of in the same vein as Jack the Ripper or Last of the Famous International Playboys. It's sort of, the origin story of a serial killer. It may or may not be that. At least it is, about a child who is showered with praise and affection. The child is the cherub, as it mentions in the lyrics. I think that this song is written from the perspective of an older sibling whose experience growing up was quite different than this child. Perhaps, they suffered some neglect, possibly some abuse. At any rate, there's a definite tone of animosity in this song. I really love this song. To me, this is another one of the better songs on the record. Actually, I think one of perhaps Morrissey's underappreciated songs in his catalog. The next song after that is a song called In the Future When All's Well. I think this song is about a game that people tend to play with themselves where, things suck today, but next week when I'm on vacation, things are going to be amazing. This is a game that I have played with myself. I'm very capable. I'm very guilty, I should say, of playing this game many times with myself. I think I've mentioned on this channel in the past that I've moved around a lot. I tend to get itchy feet, not just from fungus, but I tend to get itchy feet when I live someplace for too long. It's a trait that I've always had. I've lived in 8 different states in my life, and I can always sort of begin to feel when I'm getting burnt out on a place, because this is kind of what I start to do. I tend to start to focus on the negative traits of a place, and as I begin to think of the future, my next stop, I tend to build that place up as if it is the Emerald City. My wife and I were out last night for dinner. We didn't really do much as far as New Year's Eve goes, but we were out last night having dinner after work before kind of all the festivities really kicked up. And on the TV in the place that we were at, they had the Nashville New Year's Eve Big Bash concert on the TV. And I could tell that I'm beginning to get a little burnt out on Tennessee, not that I would deny it, because as I was sitting there watching it, all I could think about was all of the negativity and all of the negative things about living in Nashville. Now, Nashville has a lot of great traits too, but they're like anywhere else. It's flawed like any other place or any other person. It has great traits. It definitely has its flaws, but as I was watching this sort of soulless, generic, show with bad music and boring musicians, I was like, Nashville sucks. God, can't wait to get out of here. But it's this thing that I've done many times over the years. And then I get to the next place and I think it is like the greatest thing ever for like 2 years. And then I start to see the cracks or possibly create the cracks in that place, and I do it again. Anyway, that's what the song reminds me of, In the Future When All's Well. For me, it's this game I play in my head when I'm thinking about making my next move, or I start planning my next move. It's, man, when I get to wherever, location X, man, life is just going to be the best. Can't wait to get out of here. Can't wait to get away from status quo. Anyway, that's sort of my interpretation of that song. Regardless of whether or not that's what the song is about, that's what it means to me. The next song after that is a song called The Father Who Must Be Killed. To me, this song is about the sort of complicated relationship between children and their step-parents. Now, people of my generation, or at least most of the people I knew growing up as a kid, we all came from parents who divorced. I know in my personal experience, my parents separated when I was, I believe, in middle school, maybe very early high school, but I believe I was in middle school when my parents separated. And for the first couple of years, my siblings and myself, we stayed with my mom. We did the thing where we did the dad on the weekends, but we lived primarily with my mom. We went to school where she lived. And over the course of the next couple of years, things kind of like went south in our house. And through a sort of long series of events, we ended up moving in with my dad full time. Now, by this point in time, my dad had remarried. We spent a lot of weekends with the stepmother, so we were familiar with her. She's somebody that I had known most of my life. But for, when we showed up at her house, full time, we were 3 kids. We were sort of damaged. We had come from maybe not the greatest situation. And, we were just sort of like dumped in her lap. She had no children of her own. She was completely inexperienced, kind of just tossed right into the deep end of the pool, if you will. And I remember as a teenager, because I think I was like in 11th grade when this happened. I remember I was very impatient with her. I was sort of very intolerant of the mistakes that she was making, or the mistakes I perceived she was making as a 17-year-old kid. But looking back on it now as an adult, and I think about the job that she did raising 3 kids that were not her own, 3 kids that sort of showed up on her doorstep, damaged and in despair, I am completely humbled by the way she was able to conduct herself, the job that she did in raising the 3 of us. And it's something that it took a long time for me to really appreciate. It wasn't until I was able to sort of look beyond myself in this world that I really just completely admire the job that she did. So I can't really relate to the character in this song, who I think is tries to kill his stepfather, basically. But anyway, my dad's wife, I have nothing but love and respect for her for the job that she did. And that may not be everybody's experience when it comes to their step parents, but in my experience, I couldn't be more grateful than I am. The next song after that is a song that I think, my sort of humble opinion, is one of Morrissey's maybe overappreciated songs. I like the song Life is a Pigsty. I always say that this song is okay, which is pretty much how I feel about it. And every time I say I think this song is okay, I get all kinds of feedback from people, in all caps and like tons of exclamation marks, like they're falling out of a chair. Life is a Pigsty is just okay. I think it's an okay song. I do think it is one of, maybe Morrissey's over-celebrated songs. I don't say that very often. But I think that this song is basically about the drudgery of just getting up every day. Sometimes you get your hopes up for something, which usually ends in disappointment. But basically, this is just a song about life. It's not really the life you imagined for yourself. Growing up, you wanted to be the starting center fielder for the Oakland A's. But as you've gotten older, you realize you're just a guy at a job. If you were to kick off tomorrow, there would be another guy standing in your place. To me, I think that's what this song is about, is just realizing just sort of the drudgery of daily life. I do like the song. I don't think it's necessarily one of his greatest songs. I don't think it's necessarily, one of the greatest songs in his catalog. That being said, though, and one thing I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video was I saw this tour when this record first came out. And this was actually my second favorite tour I ever saw of Morrissey's. The You're the Quarry tour, which I saw twice, is my favorite tour I've ever seen of any artist ever. But when I saw the Ringleader of the Tormentors tour, which is my second favorite Morrissey tour, he was unbelievable on that tour. And he did play a lot of these songs live. And I think a lot of these songs are actually a lot better live. This song included. This is one of my favorite live songs in Morrissey's catalog. As far as like the studio version of it is, I'll say it again, I think it's okay. I don't think it's the best song on the record. I don't think it's one of the better songs in Morrissey's catalog. But I do like it. I just think it's about just getting through the day, more or less. The next song after that is I Will Never Be Anybody's Hero Now. Well, if it makes you feel any better, Steve, you're my hero. And probably the hero of millions of others. I always love it when people like that say something to that effect. It kind of reminds, it'd be kind of like if John Steinbeck said to somebody, you know me, I can't string 2 words together. So you don't know if it's like false modesty or if it's just something that just like kind of irritates you because you're so great. But anyway, you are my hero, Steve, if that makes you feel any better. Probably doesn't. The next song after that is a song called On the Streets I Ran. This has one of my favorite lyrics in the entire history of Morrissey's catalog, and that is, I turned a sickness into popular song. I think that pretty much sums up Morrissey's entire songwriting career. I think that also sums up all of us sort of maladjusted weirdos who worship him for it. I love the song On the Streets I Ran. This is probably, man, it's tough. Probably my favorite song on the record, but there's a lot of stuff on this record I actually do like. But it's probably pretty close to my favorite song on this album. The next song after that is called To Me, You Are a Work of Art. I really love this song as well. To me, this song is sort of, about the difficulty of expressing your feelings to somebody that is very dear to you. I really like this song. I believe somebody told me one time that they thought that this song was kind of a sequel to You Have Killed Me. The person in this song is the same person from the song You Have Killed Me. I think I don't disagree with that. I haven't really thought that deeply about it, but somebody did mention that to me, which I thought was cool. The next song after that is I Just Want the Boy to Be Happy. I sort of think that this song is written about Morrissey through the perspective of his mother. Now, I know that may be too straightforward for a Morrissey song, but that's just kind of my interpretation of it. I really do love that song a lot. The last song on this record is At Last I Am Born. Is Morrissey happy? Seriously? Has the Pope of Mope renounced his throne? Is it really, like I said with the last song, I just want to see the boy happy? Is it meant to be taken literally? You never know with Morrissey. Is he happy? Is he as happy as he possibly can be? I think that is like sort of a relatively happy song. I've seen him in interviews where he says he can never be truly happy. But to me, this song actually makes it sound as if Morrissey's pretty content with his lot in life. At least in 2006. Anyway, like I said, that is a little bit about Ringleader of the Tormentors. This was a record that it took me a really long time to sort of figure out how I felt about this record on its own, because like I said, for so many years it was basically attached at the hip to You Are the Quarry, which of course is totally unfair. The legacy of this record for me for so long was that it was just disappointing. It was like because You Are the Quarry set the bar so high that it was really unfair to this record, to kind of put it up against those sort of expectations, right off the bat. And I realize I'm speaking about this thing as if it's like a living, breathing entity, which it is. Art is live, is it not? But it wasn't until I really took a step back and reanalyzed how I was looking at this record that I really began to look at it as its own, piece of Morrissey's catalog. Now, when I did my Morrissey ranking at the very beginning of this channel's history, this record ended up pretty low in my rankings. I think it was only in front of Southpaw Grammar and World Peace as far as like Morrissey's records. I would say it's probably pretty accurate. This is not a record that I go back and listen to every day. There's definitely some songs on this record, to me at least, that are skippage. There are a few songs on here that I do think are pretty snug. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I think, especially like I mentioned, like the song, Life is a Pigsty. I think it's just a little bit over-celebrated. And the song Dear God, Please Help Me is probably my least favorite song in Morrissey's catalog. Anyway, man, I do want to wish all of the Morrissey fans around the world a happy new year. For next week's episode, I will be doing a 2023 Morrissey / Smiths year in review special, so you might want to come back for that. If you can stop peeing it down your own leg right now. You gotta wait. It's gonna happen. God, I'm working on it right now. Anyway, man, thank you so much for checking out this video. This is Archaic Records. My name is Jamie, coming at you from Nashville, Tennessee. Be sure to go out and support your local record store. Go back and listen to Ringleader of the Tormentors. If you liked this video, be sure to check back every week for Morrissey Monday, my weekly celebration of all things Morrissey and the Smiths, as well as other record content throughout the week. And most importantly, thank you again for checking out this video. Have a happy and great new year. I hope it is the best year of your life. And until next time, my friends, I will talk to you then.